Okay, hello everybody. Here we are live over on the Doctor Who channel. Here today with Sharon Sunshine Young. We're going to be talking a little bit about the recent Q&A that went on with the, basically the leadership or those getting ready to, or those whose hats are in the ring for PM over in the UK. But before we get to that, I want to let everybody know that Julie, Pom Pom, and I are planning another little event with the Banner, the Free Stephen Avery, Free Brendan Dassey, work with KZ Banner. That's been to Australia. It's been to Manitowoc. We took it all around on a little tour up in West Hollywood and over to Universal City Walk and all that sort of stuff. And we're now getting ready to take it down to what's called Ports of Call down in Long Beach. It's a little place where they dock the Queen Mary, where the Queen Mary now resides, and it's a really cool little place. It's just a little marketplace along the along the docks there. A lot of cool restaurants where you can get fresh seafood and just all kinds of cool stuff. So we're gonna go make a half a day of it there. Get some, especially now that I have my new Lion Rampant that I can take. So take all my flags and we go down there, make a half a day at Ports of Call and have a good time there. And then we're going to move on to downtown Disney. We're going to go from Long Beach up into Anaheim to downtown Disney. And we're going to check out some of the stuff there. And because it's going to be on December 14th, which is a Saturday, it's going to be all decked out for Christmas. So it's going to make it a little extra special and a little extra fun. So that's what we're looking to do. So then anybody that's interested, it's going to be in Southern California for the holidays. Maybe you're coming to visit family, something, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. We'll start making some tweets about this, making some awareness about this. But if you're interested, let us know. We'd like to have as many people there as possible. Also, folks, we may have a special treat coming up in February or around February or early February, where we do another event. And we might have my good friend, the Hod, here with us. And so look forward to that. We may have another one. So anyways, that's that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, real quick before we got on to, well, it'll come to me later on. But all right, so we're here mainly today to talk about, as I was saying, with our Glaswegian correspondent, Sharon Sunshine. Hello, Sharon.
Hello.
And we're obviously here to talk about the recent Q&A, as I said, with those whose hat are in the ring for PM. Obviously, some of them have a real chance at becoming PM, and others have a lesser chance. But that doesn't mean that those that have a lesser chance are meaningless, because they obviously still control a great deal of seats and therefore carry influence in the House of Commons. And that's how things get passed and denied. And, so they're all still significant leaders of their parties. And so anyways, but we'll start out by saying the two main ones, the ones that are really in the running, are Labor, and I don't know what his name is, and
Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn, and then obviously the conservatives, which are led by Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Listening to that guy talk was something else.
Train wreck.
He's like a bobblehead that can talk.
He's
and a stuttery bobblehead. Like, I don't know. Anyway,
you think you've got it bad with Trump?
I will be honest. I'm not a huge fan of Trump. I'm not calling for his head.
Can we swap?
But I'm not a huge fan of him. I'll just be honest about it. So, yeah. But it does look like right now leadership in the world is leaving something to be desired. I'll leave it at that.
Apart from in Scotland.
No, maybe not in Scotland. I mean, you guys. I mean, hey, dude, you guys got Nicola Sturgeon, and I'll tell you what, she is a pretty class act.
Yes,
she is. I was impressed with her when I was watching her in the Q&A. I mean, it wasn't a friendly atmosphere for her. The first 10 minutes of it, I would say, were downright adversarial between her and the moderator. And the moderator somehow had this like idea in her head that she was still being impartial until finally, like 10 minutes in, Nicola, in trying to answer a question for like, and got interrupted like 3 times in the first 3 words she tried to speak, got interrupted. She finally looks at the moderator and just is like, well, if I may be allowed to answer the question, you know, and it's like, it, you know, it hits that moderator. It was,
or I'm not going to be able to convince you, or something like that. She said,
and then there was the other thing of, you know, that I'm obviously not going to be able to convince you with this one, where I'm not going to be able to convince you. And obviously she's like trying to claim she's impartial, where she's like, oh, well, I'm not trying to be convinced by anybody, you know, like that's her claim to being impartial. But it was really fun to watch. But the thing is that even in that adversarial 10 minutes, Nicola was just like, didn't miss a beat. She answered whatever questions were put to her, and she took the kind of impatient and snarkiness of that moderator in stride, and didn't let it get to her. So I thought that was impressive. She carries herself well. She's a statesman. She's got a lot of things going for her, and I can understand why people are rallying behind her, because she's just seems like she's with it, got it together, not an idiot, and she can like stand into those difficult situations and continue to sound like an intelligent individual, even though many things are conspiring to make her sound other than that.
Try and twist it.
So I mean, there's obviously a lot of hostility when it comes to politics, why I don't generally talk about it. But I do find this whole situation over in the UK with Brexit, and then the potential Scottish independence, and the way this is all going, and it's I find it interesting. And so in bringing that up, I would bring up the fact that they were asking her, like, oh, here. I'm drinking the American version of Iron Brew. It has the addition of pineapple. But they were asking her, one guy just basically asked her, and it was a question that was on my mind. It was a question that occurred to me. And he said, well, this whole Brexit thing was ill-conceived, and they wanted to pull out of the European Union, and they've been doing all these things, and we've had this big old mess with Brexit and everything. And he's like, what? I mean, how are we to be assured that Scottish independence, which would be basically the same thing, separating from, you know, the bigger, you know, the bigger brother, essentially, or whatever you want to call it, but basically dividing up. He's like, how are we going to be assured that it's not going to be the same mess that Brexit is? Which I was like, yeah, that's a valid question, and had occurred to me. So,
Nicola was quick on her. Yeah, she was quick.
Very, interesting, because she said, look, she's like, one of the things she kept saying is, number one, I would never subject the people of the UK to putting another Tory in government. But which was funny. But she was talking about where was the point I was going with? She was talking about how the Tory government, the way that they implemented this thing, and the way that they chose to go about, you know, bringing Brexit about. She brought up the fact that they took out the big full, you know, side bus ads, and you know that sort of thing. She didn't bring up the fact that they were quoting President Bill Pullman from Independence Day, but they did do that too, which
I know it's sitting to me,
right? And so there was that. But the whole thing is she's pointing out that they did it they did it badly. They didn't get prepared to do it. They just kind of thought, let's do this, and had no plans. Well, she's like, well, when it comes to Scottish independence, it's been well planned. It's been thought about. People are considering everything about it. And it's not going to just be a fly by the seat of your pants operation. So she's saying, by my opinion, it will turn out a lot differently than the Brexit negotiations turned out, because we've actually put the work into the planning to make it happen. You know, and so that was the answer. That was the answer I was really interested to hear, because like I said, that guy that was asking it, I was like, yep, dude, yep. I was thinking the same thing.
Well, there was so many things in place during the independence referendum. There was so many things in place where there was like dates where the independence was going to take place, and I mean, it was properly all worked out. It was, the details were there, you know, whereas it's, you know, and it was all divided, like this was going to be this and this was going to be that, and there was things signed by both parties, and I know that sounds a bit unspecific, but it was like definitely more so than with Brexit. I think they just thought, nobody's going to vote for that, let's no bother doing any planning or, you know, anything like that. There was no preparation at all, you know. So,
right.
And even the Scottish government, I sent you the link to that. They brought out that the book, the Scotland's Future in Scotland's Hands. So they even wrote a book. I think it was like 600 pages, telling people, you know, like this is what to expect. So I mean, the preparations were, you know, outstanding. It was almost as if they, you know, were expecting to be criticised, so they covered every base, you know, sort of thing. So
it's, you know, honestly, you want to make an informed decision, obviously. I mean, this is upsetting a lot of people. I mean, there's people that there are people that are for Scottish independence, and there are people that are not, and so that's, as is the problem with any political issue, because you're never going to get 100% of the people to agree.
No,
I mean, it's just not a reality. So, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But it does seem that as the antics continue over there in the House of Commons, that the SNP is gaining more support, and it's probably going to continue to gain more support. And to be honest, if the criteria for a referendum to bring about the vote is that there's a drastic change in government, then I think Brexit qualifies as a drastic change in government. I'm sorry. That's me assessing the issues right on the surface.
Yeah.
It occurs to me that is the case. So, look, I'm a kumbaya kind of guy. So, if you know, Westminster really wants to get it together, then stop acting like a bunch of idiots.
Yes, pull your finger out.
Commons. Grow up, get your stuff together, and start acting like grown-ups. Because what's coming out of the House of Commons right now is disgraceful. The things that I'm seeing coming out of there are disgraceful. I mean, and you're giving the Scottish representation, those representatives to there by Scotland, you're giving them more and more reason to have no faith in the government that they're supposed to be participating in. And if they can look, regardless of political party, regardless of political leanings or anything, if you make people feel like their concerns don't matter and you don't want to hear them, then it's going to fuel the conversation for Scottish independence. You understand that, right, guys? Over there in Englandshire?
We should listen.
I mean, cause and effect. This is how it happens, right? Anyways, okay, so that's it. I'll get off my soapbox now.
You're on your soapbox that much, there's bubbles behind you.
Definitely.
Oh, no. But, I mean, what was I going to say? There was something I was going to say there. Oh yeah, many people say though that they would rather see, you know, the progress of the Scottish government for longer to see how well they could do, you know, covering Scotland, right?
Mr. Capaldi even is one of those, right?
Yes, yeah. But the thing is though, that every time there's a general election, there's a new government that comes in, and they're in charge of the whole country. Right, and they might not have, like, for example, Jeremy Corbyn, he's the Labour, right? and we've not had a Labour PM rather since the 2010 election, right? So he's never been Prime Minister. He's never did anything like that before. So we would just be expected to trust them to come in and be able to run the country with no experience. Whereas we're actually seeing how Scotland's doing well. You know what I mean? We have been for a good number of years, you know, so I kind of feel a bit like that, you know, that it's like every time there's a general election, it's a new government comes in, or if it's the same government, it's a different PM and they've got all their own ideas and, you know what I mean? We're just supposed to trust them, but, you know,
Well,
so it always feels a bit odd that, you know, it's like...
Well, it's always going to be that, right? You know, it's, I mean... You're whoever the leader is not going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? I mean, that's, you know, but I get what you're saying. I mean, is Mr. Jeremy Corbyn, is he going to be qualified enough to be PM? Well, he's, you know, I imagine people would ask the same thing about Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're going to say, oh yeah, but you know, people are going to say, well, she's PM of Scotland, and then people are going to say, yes, Scotland's a tiny little place. This is going to be a much bigger place, right? I mean, on and on the arguments can go, but
exactly,
I'm sure he's I'm sure he's enough of a politician that he's qualified to step in there and basically know what he's doing. Now, is all of his policies going to agree with everybody? I'm sure not. I heard somebody call him out as a socialist during that some little bit of it that I was watching. Or he was saying he had
anti-Semitic as well. They were saying that as well. They were saying
he had socialist policies, that he was, you know, blah blah blah, and he shifted right away from he got away from the socialist thing right away and went right into how he believes in freedom of speech, blah blah blah. He was basically like talking about all the things that are extremely important to me.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there and listening to him, and I'm like, I don't believe it.
You know, see, that's the thing.
So I don't know, but
we wish that Labour were stronger, and unfortunately, it's like it looks like we're going to get Boris again. Jeremy Corbyn's not strong enough. We don't think he's strong enough to win people over, because he just, I don't know, he's just not. It's not that he's unlikable. He's just not. You just can't put everything into him, if you know what I mean. You just kind of have. I just think there's just
people have their doubts, obviously.
Yeah, because I mean, he's been there. I mean, there was the 2015 election, and was that when 2015 was when David Cameron still was in after 2010 was the Lib Dem coalition with the Conservatives. 2015 was when David Cameron got the seat himself. Then Theresa May was in 2016. So it was like there wasn't even like the 5 years. It was just like they kept changing the seats. And then it's... so in so he'd lost all those times. He could have been PM all those times, those 3 times. And people just didn't vote for him. They just didn't vote for him. So, and it would normally be, you know, a really good candidate on both sides, like Labour and Conservative. And admittedly, years ago, I would be like, right, when it's a general election, you vote Labour because you want to make sure there's, you know, enough people voting Labour. And a lot of people in Scotland did do that. Scotland was very much a Labour, you know, sort of country. But with the way things went and the way that we saw that Labour were just not interested in Scottish interests at all, it was like people were starting to go, well, actually, the SNP are sounding a bit more, you know, for Scotland, and that's why the move kind of went. It wasn't. I don't think it was so much even for the independence thing. I don't think it's. I think there's a lot of people that support the SNP, but they're not necessarily jumping to the freedom.
There's a lot
I said it myself.
I think there's a lot of that, because I think the SNP, whether or not Scots believe ultimately in the SNP's goals, they do believe that the SNP has the Scottish people at heart.
Exactly.
And so when it becomes, so when they get into a quandary, it's like, you know what? Yeah, we'll go with, SMP because at least, even though I may not believe in their end game, I believe they care about the thoughts, so.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people. There's quite a few people like that have said, oh, well, I'm going to vote for them. Or worse still, the thing that drives me nuts is that people say, I don't like Boris Johnson, I don't like Jeremy Corbyn, so I'm not going to vote.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, you're not going to vote? It's like, what? It's like, how can you not vote? It's like, but then it's, people are put in that position, that they just don't like either candidate, and it's, but it's not about, but it's like, it shouldn't be about that candidate, because I mean, they're only there for a little while, That's similarly with independence. A lot of people said, oh, I don't like Alex Salmond, I'm not going to vote for independence. And it was like, there was no guarantee. He was the former First Minister of Scotland before Nicola Sturgeon. And a lot of people really weren't, enamoured with him. And a lot of people said, I'm not voting for independence because I don't like Alex Salmond. And it was like, who's to say he's going to be like, in charge when we get independence? It's like, because obviously we would pick another leader, it's like it would be a whole different political spectrum once independence came,
So coming about, yeah.
So it was like to, sort of cut your nose off to say, oh, I don't like him. It's silly. It's silly to me that people would, pick, the fact that they don't like a politician, would be the reason why they would, go a certain way, So
right. So, what did for you when you were watching, Nicola, in the Q&A? What was it about it that you liked the most, or what that stood out the most to you?
Her honesty. I think she's really got the integrity. I think she's got the Eric Cosey integrity. You come out with the straight shooter thing, and I think she's very much like that. And I know many people think you can't trust politicians, but I do think that she really does. She doesn't like BS. She comes out and tells the truth. And if she doesn't, if she's maybe wavering about something rather than just wavering about it, she'll say, oh, I don't really want to give a politician's answer, with this, but, but this is, if I give away, then I'm showing my cards.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I get that too when she was saying that. And people wanted to press her. I'm like, well, she's not going to say anything now because,
Yeah, but rather than just giving the politician answer.
So much weight on that particular topic. She's definitely not going to tell you anything else.
No.
I mean, but she didn't do that with every topic.
No, that was that one thing. And I mean, you can see why she wouldn't.
Where she said, I'd rather not.
Not say yeah.
And
you can understand why. I mean, you wouldn't give away everything. You don't want to give away all your, and I mean, that was maybe like a set up in a way to try and trick her into giving a politician's answer, and then they would say, But I mean, I do think she's a natural politician, and I'm not the only one that thinks that. Piers Morgan, who hates everyone, said that about her too. He doesn't hates everyone.
Does he?
Yeah, he hates everyone. Well, he gets into arguments and, and he tries to rile her up and she just keeps her cool. She's like, cool. So she just keeps her cool and, she's really eloquent and,
Yeah, it's like I say, she stands in there in the firefight and she doesn't look any worse for wear. She stands her ground and, she still is able to make her points even on the fly. You may not know exactly what question's coming, and she did very well. She looks. I mean, she's very much of a statesman. She's as we would say here in the States, we would say presidential. She has that grace and that
she does
that charisma. So obviously, not everybody agrees with her politics. So that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about. Personality traits here.
Yeah,
that she is likable and she's a very pretty honest person. So those things.
And that's what I mean. So a lot of people think all politicians lie, and I think it's it would be a sad place if we all thought that, because we'd all be cynical and just say, oh, they all lie, doesn't matter, let's not bother voting. It's that same line, they all lie, don't bother voting, it doesn't matter who we vote for. And it's like, that to me is, a loss to the world if you just don't bother, engaging with anything. It's, to me that's sad, so I think in Scotland it's like we're seeing how well things are being, run. We're told things and they happen. So it's easy to believe a politician when they deliver what they're actually saying they're going to deliver. So
yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to watch how things progress here, because the biggest really point, I think, in that Q&A that was the main focus was the fact that most likely Labour and the SNP are going to form a coalition, as everybody kept calling it.
And more informal one.
Be able to block the Conservatives and continue to block Brexit and the conservative policies that not everybody agrees with. And so there was a lot of talk about that. So that's why the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon and the Labour Party have become kind of important in this election. It's why Jeremy Corbyn is being, talked about as they think maybe possibly, he can beat Boris. But even if he doesn't beat Boris, he's going to be still the head of the Labour Party.
Yeah, shadow government at the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So therefore, and Nicola said, I'd rather not. I liked what she said. She's like, you guys all keep calling it a coalition. She's like,
more informal than that.
His manifesto says he wants to do this. That's something that we kind of agree with, but we want our referendum. So he wants to play ball with us. We can play some ball here, and we can get some really positive things done. Yeah, and fulfill his manifesto to a certain extent. So she's like, so you call it a coalition. I say it's just what's for the best, kind of thing. She had that real kind of approach. I was like, this is why she's good at, talking and I mean, this is why she's on stage like that, because she's able to sit there in a very tense situation like that and still come up with just very frank answers and simple ways to help, convey, her thoughts. Like, you don't have to think of this as a coalition and cloak and dagger and, all kinds of things. Yeah. Like, look, it's just kind of pretty simple on the surface. Look, everybody benefits. Win-win. Let's go.
like for example, I don't know if you remember the point where Jeremy Corbyn was talking about he was going to be progressive this and progressive that, and he was going to be doing all these things. And Nicola had pointed out that in their manifesto they were saying about prescriptions and all that sort of thing. And she said, we're already doing free prescriptions in Scotland. We're already doing helping with the bedroom tax, because there's a thing the Tories brought in where if you've got a spare bedroom, you had to pay, like say maybe someone gets helps with housing benefit, like if they can't afford to pay the rent, they only were covering that one bedroom in the rent, and if it cost, like say maybe £50 more or something like that, the person was going to have to pay. But in Scotland, they've mitigated it, that's the word, where they basically cover it for the people of Scotland. They don't have to pay that extra money. So maybe say someone's disabled and they need an extra room, it doesn't matter, you were still having to pay like for that extra, that extra room. You do in England. Prescriptions with a council tax freeze as well to try and bring it more in line with the rest of the country. So these are all things that he was saying, we're going to be progressive, and in Scotland they've been already doing that for like a long while.
Well, so, I do get the impression that Nicola and the SNP are a rather liberal organization, which isn't a bad thing. But I do notice that they tend to be along the liberal lines for the most part. It seems like there's quite a few liberal parties, as if the liberals have really split up there. Is there multiple conservative parties, or is there really just
Well, the lines are kind of blurred, right? Because it used to be there would be like the Labour, and then the Conservatives are actually called the Conservative and Unionist Party. And I mention that because people often say, you know, the Scottish Independence Party, they just want independence and that's it. Well, the Conservatives and Unionist Party, they just want the union. So
Right.
it works both ways, doesn't it? It works both ways.
Right.
So, but no one ever says that. They never say the full name of the Conservatives for some reason. I don't know why that would be. So yeah, I mean, I forgot what you just asked.
Well, basically, I think you're basically saying there's conservatives maybe even in the Labour.
Oh, the blurred lines. That's what it was you were saying about the.
Lines,
yeah, sorry, it went away in my head. Yeah, I mean, the Conservatives used to be like, you know, right wing, and they still are right wing, and then Labour would be more, you know, sort of left wing, whatever it means, you know, sort of thing.
It's just what you tend to agree, what you tend to believe in. I mean, for me, it means liberals believe more in the progressive, positive change and trying to alleviate, society's problems and stuff. Whereas, conservatives are more bean counters, and so they're afraid of change,
wanting the money,
and and because they don't know exactly what it's going to look like, they're just they prefer having a known outcome. And it's just their nature. I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, if liberal policies run away, it leads to disaster. If conservative policies run away, it leads to disaster. It happens both ways. Not saying either way is right or wrong. But those tend to be the traits that would.
They're just two. Is there just like two in America? There's like liberal and Democrats, and that's kind of like one side or the other side kind of thing. Because here it's the Conservatives.
We have multiple
Labour, yeah. So they're like, the Conservatives being sort of right wing, like you say, they're being counters and wanting the money.
Right.
Labour were supposed to be more for like the working person, and the sort of workers' rights and all that sort of thing. Then the Liberal Democrats were like supposed to be in the middle, and they were supposed to be like the Progressive Party, but they've actually become more like the Conservatives. So they're not as liberal as they used to be. So then the SNP have kind of jumped into that for the people role, that sort of liberal, like you say. So it's all a bit skewed, and that's why people don't know who to vote for, really, because they don't know.
Yeah.
Well, look at the straight answers you were getting out of Boris Johnson and that, So, if you want waffle,
right.
more waffles in a waffle factory.
Right. So yeah, I just, it does seem, the only reason I brought up the fact that the SNP seems to be more liberal is it seems like Scotland as a whole tends to have their mind on the progressive policies, and Nicola Sturgeon as well. From listening to some of her speeches, she's very much into a lot of the progressive policies, which is a fine thing in a lot of ways. But I also worry. This is why I'm middle of the road. This is exactly why I'm middle of the road, because it's great to want to save the world, and it's great to want to diminish suffering. But the problem is I worry about some policies because I feel like they can run away, and they can end up hurting a lot more people than they can help. And that's really where I get a little bit concerned. I call myself a centrist because I honestly can see merit in conservative policies as well as I can see merit in liberal policies, but it always depends on the situation. That's why I'm like absorbing this whole, Brexit and Scottish independence thing right now. I'm just kind of sitting back with no conclusive opinion, trying to absorb all the information that's there. And what as best I can, because that's just the way I operate. But I'll tell you what, in this world, I think right now, one of the biggest problems we have, and it's making it hard. It's making it hard to get things done politically and to get people on the same page, is that everybody seems, a lot of people seem to be rooting for their political party like it's their favorite sports team.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a problem because
Mm-hmm.
I love my favorite sports team. Okay, and I will always back my few favorite sports teams, and I will always back them, and whether they suck or whether they're good, right? So that's not exactly the attitude I would want in politics.
Mm-hmm.
That's so that's kind of where I'm going with that. But a lot of
Yeah.
people nowadays seem to be unable to go, wait,
Differentiate.
no, I'm not good with this. I still feel this way, but I'm not good with this stuff, or whatever. It's like people are becoming less able to, I guess, think for themselves in a lot of ways nowadays. But
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, it's up to us to all start to try to see that we shouldn't be rooting for our political parties like sports teams.
No.
We should be looking at the issues and looking at the merits and focusing on those things. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this whole Brexit and Scottish independence thing. So that's my advice to all people moving forward.
Yeah.
Just like I preach in the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases, I preach tolerance and I preach keeping it classy, because we're not all going to agree with each other, but hopefully we can all maintain a dialogue with each other and have a little bit of mutual respect for the human condition.
Yes, absolutely. Agree. Absolutely.
So,
another thing that people, it just came into my head.
Oh, that reminded me of something. Sorry.
Oh, no, go.
Scottish Flash's tweet.
Right?
You saw it, right? I think it illustrates
Which one?
maybe the one where she retweeted this girl who had gotten 2 different political flyers.
Oh, yes, yeah, the flyers.
Right? And there's the one that came from the SNP.
Yeah.
It was like very clear as day. The election's on this day. Make sure, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's giving all the pertinent information that you need
Remember
for
to
a general
vote
election, and type of thing. And then she goes to the one that's like from, I guess, the Conservative Party?
It might have been Labour, that one. I'm not sure. I can't remember, actually. I can't remember to be honest.
Yeah, and she's showing this thing on screen. It's got all this little type.
SNP bad.
They're writing a book on the damn thing, and nowhere on it does it say what day the election is.
Candidate.
Like,
yeah, I saw that.
Oh, it's basically just dragging the SNP through the mud, and I think even the Tories and all that sort of stuff. And it's just like this whole thing of diatribe just dragging the other parties through the mud. But it's like, when's the election, guys? Anywhere on here?
That's what they're always like. I mean, they come through the door like that all the time, and you go, oh, God's sake. I mean, it really is. It's like you never know what their policies are, or the things they're going to try and sell you, I suppose. It just always is like more the negative, like the SNP just want to cancel so many NHS things, and that sort of thing, whatever it is. It's never like when we get in, we want to do this, or we want to. It's not positive. It's always a negative. It's always a negative thing,
Right,
so.
and that's what it was. That other flyer was very negative. It was very much just dumping on the opponents.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, did not have any of the pertinent information, like the day of the election, or anything like that should be on a flyer like that.
Yeah.
There. So that's to me, that was what stood out about that, and I thought that was interesting. So.
And did you see the bit where Joe Swanson, the Lib Dem, when they mentioned about the bar chart thing? Did you notice that bit?
Bar chart? No, I don't.
Because she had got into a bit of trouble with some of her leaflets as well, because they were rather misleading, let's say. And I'm sure it was an honest accident, So, but it was like she'd put the chart was like the Lib Dems were way up high and Conservative, where they were like neck and neck in this bar chart, and it was as if they were. This was how popular they were in that area. And then at the bottom of it, in the tiniest writing, it says, imagine a world where, this was how candidate, And it was like, I'm just paraphrasing, so So she'd get into trouble for that, for misleading,
Right.
bar chart information. So, but I mean, they can say what they like. That's the thing. They can say what they like. There's no anything there to stop them from, oh my God,
I mean,
from saying anything that they want to say.
hey, but you know what? People are becoming aware of that, because leave it to the biggest source of fake news himself, Donald Trump, for making people aware of the fact that
Yes.
they need to be taken seriously where they get their news.
Yes.
Obviously. And now people have begun to question their news sources, and they're starting to question the credibility and how much they can trust, their news sources.
Well,
and it's actually becoming a question for people that it didn't previously wasn't a question.
Yeah. The BBC has lost so many people in Scotland. They just don't watch television anymore. They'll just watch Netflix and all that sort of thing. And they've lost loads of people because they were so
their TV license and just watch on internet, right?
Yeah. Because the way that they were so skewed during the independence, campaign, it was disgusting. Really, really was the way they skewed the news every day. The news was skewed and in favour of the union, and they actually get into trouble for it, just minorly into trouble for it. But it was a big thing, and people in Scotland were like, oh, chase yourself. I'm just gonna, and I don't watch. I pay my TV license because I do watch some things on telly, but not, the BBC are big fat liars, as people would say. And they were the ones that were in that debate thing. They were the ones that were doing that debate.
Right.
So, but what I will say is there's been an inundation of people. That's not the right word, but it's been inundated with make my own words up as I go along. They've been inundated with people in England saying that they wish they could have voted for Nicola Sturgeon as PM. So that's actually quite a good thing, and they're saying they wish that she was their candidate.
Right. Well, it's things like that maybe the next election cycle she might be. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I said, she's a hell of a statesman, and she may continue to win over hearts and minds. Who knows what may happen in a year?
See, unfortunately, that's skewed as well, because she could never, an SNP person could never be PM of the whole of Britain, because there's just not enough.
Well, that's what I mean. That could.
Yeah.
You're probably right, but it could.
Yeah.
It's like I said, hearts and minds. People. If people continue to lose faith in the government that's there, they will change it.
Yeah.
So and whatever change that takes, well, that leads for the melee at the time when that all goes down. So
one other thing I just remembered as well was quite a few people will say, well, why? I think someone mentioned that in that debate thing as well. Why would Scotland be okay leaving? Staying in Europe, but they want to stay, to break away from the rest of the UK. And it's like, for Scotland, Europe's actually a really good thing, because the way that we pay the members' fee type thing, then, certain places in the country get, so I'm getting a wee echo in my ear, they'll get like a grant back from the EU, and it's quite good for Scotland because we've been able to do like quite a lot of big projects and stuff like that. Money that we wouldn't have seen from Westminster,
right.
So Scotland's done quite well, out of Europe. So I mean, that's going to be a big loss. I think that's one of the things they talk about when they say, that there's a worry for Brexit, because the farmer subsidies and all that sort of thing, because the Highlands, farmers are way up, far away, sort of thing, So, but I mean, we don't so much look at it as being governed by, I suppose, one big daddy or the other big daddy. The Europe's not coming in and
the European Union is more hands off. Right? Yeah, they're more hands off. It's more of a mutual beneficially
partnership.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas it's certainly not that
becoming clear, right? That's to me, that's what seems to be the theme as I'm watching more and more. It's that Scotland finds the EU to be very, advantageous to its, way of doing things. And
Yeah.
obviously England and, the UK no longer feels that way. So, like I said earlier in the video, if the criteria to trigger a referendum to allow the Scots to vote for independence is a drastic change in government, then judging by the how much Scotland seems to appreciate being in the union, that Brexit would be a huge change. So therefore, I think should trigger that referendum. I'm not saying I want it to happen, don't want it to happen, whatever. I'm just saying that if that's the rules, then I think they're met.
Because a material change in circumstances.
Right, a huge change in the government. And if that's the criteria, then the huge change has happened, or is possibly going to happen, or is imminent. Or imminent, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite keen in another vote, like for Brexit. I'm quite keen in that. So I mean, I like, the fact that the other parties are saying, like we'll try and get another vote and, sort of see, because I think it would be better. Yeah. So I mean, like for the Brexit thing,
for the SNP continue to kind of come in.
Yeah.
And then in a couple of years, then say, okay, you know what? We tried to live with Brexit. We don't like it. We want to go. We want referendum. And then that way your Parliament's had a couple more years to get some time under its belt. So, and then you get more guys like Paul Capaldi who might warm up to it. So,
but there's lots of things protecting Scotland. Like laws and all that will be whittled away when we leave
the EU.
European. Yeah. So I mean, it's not just like monetary things. It's actually like things to protect workers' rights and all that sort of thing. Because like I've said to you before, in Scotland and in England you get annual leave, and you get it paid for like 4 weeks is mostly the sort of standard. And there's like contractual things where your certain amount of hours are meant to work if you've got a contract and all that sort of thing. Whereas some of those things are EU regulations, and I think people are going to notice when things are getting whittled away from them rather than just like wanting out of Europe. So I think it's sort of thing. But I mean, it's the way that, like you say, I really like the way that you put it. It's like you have to know all the facts and all that sort of thing. That's why I think people should have known the facts properly about Brexit, before they jumped in and just said.
I mean, I certainly want to see what's best for the Scots, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if independence is the answer, but I'll tell you what, I don't like the way that they have that they're forced to basically accept some of the treatment that they're getting in Westminster.
To bend the knee.
I cannot, in any kind of good conscience, blame the Scots for wanting to get the hell out of that mess.
Yeah.
Clips that I'm seeing from Westminster and that sort of stuff that are getting sent. I mean, yeah, if that's the kind of circus they're running, it's kind of hard to cry foul, guys. Seriously.
Yeah.
You can't act like that and then try to cry foul when Scotland says, yeah, well, we think you guys are jerking us around and we think you have very little respect for us. So we kind of want to take our own future into our own hands because we just don't feel like you guys are in our corner, and that's what it's going to come down to. And, so yeah, it's going to continue to fuel the independence conversation and it may just fuel it right into happening.
I mean, people always say, when we talk about independence, they always go back to like William Wallace and say, oh, it's because of William Wallace, and it's like, and you think that was like in, 1300s, right? Whereas the Act of Union was in 1707.
The Tories aren't coming down and sleeping with your wives on your wedding night, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's like that's like 400 years later. Do you know what I mean? So people are not sitting there going, "Oh, it's because of William Wallace," sort of thing. But I mean, with the Act of Union, we were supposed to be like, equal partners, respected, voices heard. The two parliaments were merging, the Scottish Parliament, because the original English Parliament ceased and the Scottish Parliament ceased, and then it was a mutual parliament of the two countries. So it was supposed to be,
Right.
on good terms and supposed to be acted, respectful of both sides.
It's too bad that the Scottish royalty couldn't seem to hold the crown there. You might have done a lot better.
Well,
I think you had like three. I think there was three, and then the line ended. If I'm not mistaken, there was James. I think you had one.
James was James the Sixth of Scotland and the first of England.
Right.
That was like nearly 100 years before the Act of Union, though. That was like in 16. I think it was 16. Might have been 1604. So he was like there was a union of the crowns, which was the two countries, but the actual political union wasn't until the 1707. So it was difficult for James to rule both countries because there was two different parliaments, two different laws and all that sort of thing. So it wasn't until it was Queen Anne. So you can blame a woman for getting us into the trouble.
There you go.
So, but I mean, that was it was a bit crazy, but I mean, James the First of England and Sixth of Scotland. He was Mary Queen of Scots' son.
Yes, and,
so most people know that, and and then I think it was the nephew of Elizabeth the First. So that's why he had the
right. Well, yeah, because
both
Mary and Elizabeth were cousins.
Cousins, yeah, they were, yeah.
Right.
So it's like that's how it kind of
all the royalty in Europe was cousins. How do you think the Habsburg jaw came into being?
Yeah, like I know you talk about that. Yeah, yeah. But I think it went. I think where everything kind of went wrong was at the point. I don't know. I really don't know why they. Well, they were trying to find who the new king was going to be. This was a way back in 12. I think it was 1280 something, and there was a lot of different people that were going to be the king because the person that was supposed to be the queen died on her way over in a boat, right? So she was, I think it was from Norway. I think I can't remember what her name was, right? But so it was left in a position where there was like all these different people. So what they did was they asked Edward I to come in and help them pick who the king was,
right,
for Scotland, right? So he picked someone that he knew would be malleable, let's say.
Right.
A guy called John Balliol, I think that was his name. And I mean, things basically went a bit, there's a phrase we would use in Scotland. I'll not use it here, but things went less than great from there. And that's where all the sort of fights were, and that's when the William Wallace thing started, sort of thing. So if you go back to the end. So but yeah, so I mean, there was so many battles and stuff like that. But then, so that's what I'm saying. There was the Union was like the 1707. So that was a good number of years later, and there was many reasons for that. And then obviously you guys, it was at 1776 you got your freedom.
Those are yes, that's the year we get our independence.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. I really am. I say that all the time. I say, lucky buggers getting away, and they got away, and It was
supposed to be the shot that was heard around the world that caused democracy to spread and stopped a lot of the totalitarianistic governments and slowly more and more of the world became democratic. It's like now, I don't know, there's a scary thing out there like right now, like where it seems to want to, the democratic process just seems to be becoming less important, and people seem to be not understanding the importance of the principles of liberty, and that freedom isn't free. Sitting around with a handout isn't really freedom.
No.
Freedom is something that, you know, you do have to kind of pay attention to and be diligent and you know and not be caught off, you know, not be caught off guard. Essentially, you know, you got to be paying attention to what's going on around you. Look for threats to that liberty. It's, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of concerning things out there right now, but like I said, I think a lot of it stems from the fact that people have gotten to rooting for political parties the way they do for their sports teams. I think that's a dangerous thing.
Yes, absolutely agree with you.
So,
Yeah, because a lot of unionists are into Rangers, and you know they even vote for the party that is like not aligned with their you know, their politics, but you know, it's like you can kind of tell the people that are, you know, the sort of Celtic, that's football team Celtic and Rangers, that's like in Glasgow.
right.
And you can sort of tell there's a divide, you know, the Rangers supporters will support one party, right. You know.
Oh, really?
The Celtic will support another. So it's like they're supporting their team and their politics, you know, and it's like a bit crazy, you know. So, and the SNP voters are just like a bit of both. And I mean, there's quite a lot of English people, you know, support the SNP as in English people living in Scotland, right. You know, so it's, you know, it's quite a lot.
Not Capaldi, but, you know.
Well, I think he's a kind of shilly-shally, and he's kind of like, he's a kind of go with the flow. He's like, oh, well, whatever, you know, just, they're all liars. That's what he's like, they're all liars, so why bother, you know, so, you know, so I think that's Paul.
Unless he can dance with them, then, you know.
Yes. You vote for the gay Gordons. So I remember you saying that in that video. I don't even know who that is. No, that makes me proper belly laugh. You're like, Gay Gordon? I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I thought he was trying to trick
me. He was some YouTuber. That proper makes me laugh when I watch that. It made me laugh. Oh, it's funny. I was like, oh, what you like?
All right. So that has been our show here today, talking with our lovely correspondent here, Glaswegian correspondent, talking about, you know, the recent Q&A session there with the potential picks for PM there over in the UK. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. And anything you'd like to say before we go, Miss Sunshine?
Just this. I love coming on here, and I really appreciate you asking me on. It's great. And
Linda's been saying you're beautiful, by the way, and she's getting very
thank you, Linda.
This topic, so she's going to look into it.
Linda,
I shared the YouTube video to the talk with her, to the that you sent me to watch the Q&A. I posted it in the chat.
Linda always says, I don't understand politics in my own country. I'm not going to understand it in another country. That's what she always says.
So that's hilarious.
She's so funny.
So, and folks, remember, go check out Linda's channel. She's got
I was going to say that. I was going to give her a wee plug.
A lot of content about the Eagle Nation cycles and stuff, which is very good to supplement the upcoming film that's going to be being made. So make sure you go over and check out some of that stuff. We want to put some support behind the $50 million bullet, because I think it's going to bring more of a showcase to some of the shady doings going on there in Wisconsin. So I think it's important in that aspect. Could help Stephen and Brendan. So I think that's why it's important for those who are interested in justice here in Wisconsin to put some support behind that. Thank you for those of you who are here for the live broadcast. And we'll see you guys. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe.